There's a certain kind of restlessness that only exists when you're stuck inside. Not the restlessness of boredom, not the kind that feels temporary, but the restlessness that feels like suffocation. It's that feeling when you hear the ticking clock, the hum of silence pressing against your ears, and realize that you're trapped in a space where nothing happens. It's not peace, it's imprisonment. Most people don't understand that. They'll look at someone who hates staying home and assume they're running from something, avoiding themselves, maybe even afraid of being alone. But for some people, home isn't a sanctuary. It's the one place where they feel most lost. Because inside these walls, surrounded by stillness and their own thoughts, they lose track of who they are. Out there, in the energy of people, movement, and possibility, they find themselves again. Maybe it started when they were younger. The bedroom, the quiet house, the long afternoons alone. Places filled with stillness that felt like punishment. For some, those spaces felt like sensory deprivation. You had to create noise to feel alive, move faster to feel real, and fill every moment to seem okay. So they built an external world instead. A world that was louder, faster, more forgiving. That's where the outside became more than a place. It became oxygen. Psychologists say that people who hate being at home often have high needs for external stimulation. That means their brains require novelty, interaction, and sensory input to feel engaged. Silence, stillness, too much time alone. It can feel like drowning. So, the need to get out isn't escapism. It's survival. It's the nervous system saying, here in the world, I can finally breathe. But let's be honest, it's not just about stimulation. There's something deeper, something almost existential about it. Home is the only place where the mask comes off. The social version of us, the one that thrives on connection, the one that knows how to light up a room, how to make people laugh, how to matter. That version begins to dissolve when the door closes behind us. And what's left? The raw, unfiltered version. The one that suddenly feels invisible. The one that doesn't know what to do when no one's watching. It's strange, isn't it? How a person can be surrounded by silence and suddenly feel like they're disappearing. But the moment they're out, walking down a crowded street or sitting in a busy cafe, they finally feel real again. That's the quiet terror of solitude. It's not intimacy with yourself. It's confrontation with emptiness. We often romanticize solitude in our culture. We celebrate those who can sit in silence, who meditate, who find peace in stillness. We treat constant socializing like it's superficial and movement like it's avoidance. But there's a vibrant power in people who know how to be energized by others without feeling drained, because they've learned that fulfillment isn't found in isolation. Sometimes it's found in the noise. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't go within, you go without. But for people who hate staying home, going out isn't avoidance. It's alignment. It's how they process emotion, recover from understimulation, and reconnect with what's real. Think about it. When you're constantly alone, your identity starts to fragment. You become trapped in a single version of yourself, the one that only exists in your own head. But when you're out there, you become multidimensional. You're the friend who makes people laugh, the colleague who solves problems, the stranger who catches someone's eye. You're reminded that you matter. Of course, there's a fine line between connection and dependency. Even the most extroverted souls need moments of quiet. But here's the paradox. People who hate staying at home often have more meaningful lives, not shallower ones, because they don't waste energy hiding from the world. They crave experiences that shake them awake, moments where presence means participation, where silence would feel like death. When psychologists study people who need external engagement, they find something fascinating. Those who spend more intentional time in social environments tend to score higher on measures of emotional resilience and adaptability. It's not because they're running from their feelings. It's because they're processing through action. They understand their thoughts by expressing them. They heal their emotional wounds through connection, not isolation. Think about the times you've had your biggest realizations. They probably didn't come sitting alone in your room staring at the walls. They came during a late-night conversation with a friend, in the middle of a crowded concert when a lyric hit differently, or while walking through the city when inspiration struck from simply being alive and moving. That's the hidden power of getting out. It gives your mind the stimulation it needs to think clearly. But here's what's ironic. Many people who hate staying home carry a secret shame about it. They feel like they should be able to enjoy solitude, like they're emotionally immature or codependent because they need people. Self-help culture makes it worse. Endless advice about finding yourself in silence, about meditation and journaling and inner peace makes extroverts feel like they're doing something wrong. But the truth is, the quiet monk on the mountain isn't the only path to wisdom. Everyone's chasing meaning. And for some people, meaning just looks like being out in the world. There's something deeply human about needing to move, to engage, to experience. In ancient times, humans were nomads, travelers, hunters. Today, people do it through social gatherings, city walks, or coffee shops filled with strangers and conversation. It's the same impulse, the need to engage with life instead of watching it pass by. And here's the psychology behind it. When you're out in the world, you're in what scientists call a high-engagement environment. Your body produces dopamine and oxytocin, the connection hormones, because there's novelty to process and people to bond with. That's why your thoughts often feel clearer when you're moving. That's why you suddenly feel motivated when you're around others. Your energy rises, and all the stagnation you've been drowning in finally lifts. It's activation disguised as socializing. But not everyone understands this. Sometimes people will say things like, "You need to learn to be alone," or "You're afraid of your own company." What they don't realize is that getting out doesn't mean running from yourself. Some of the most meaningful growth happens out there. Connecting, experiencing, engaging, creating. These are all vital revolutions happening in the open air. And the people who hate staying home aren't necessarily avoiding introspection. They're engaging with life. They're experiencing, building, participating. And when they do have quiet moments, they bring stories instead of emptiness. There's also a psychological comfort in variety. The brain loves novelty because it promotes growth and learning. When every day brings something different, when the environment constantly shifts, your mind expands. For someone who hates staying home, this variety becomes essential. It's not chaos, it's emotional vitality. Every new conversation, every small adventure, from discovering a new neighborhood to making a stranger laugh, becomes a way of telling the nervous system, "You're alive now." Yet in a world that's begun to worship introversion, that kind of energy feels misunderstood. We're taught that to be deep, we must be quiet, always reflecting, always turning inward. But people who hate staying home quietly challenge that idea. They prove that meaning doesn't always come from stillness. Sometimes it comes from movement, from being connected enough to notice the energy in a room, from having the courage to be seen. And maybe that's why people who hate staying home often have such rich external lives. When you spend enough time engaging with the world, connection starts to bloom. You begin to see possibilities others miss. You notice the magic in human interaction. The way a conversation can shift your entire day. The way a crowded room can make you feel less alone. The sound of laughter that reminds you why being human matters. Some people will never understand that kind of aliveness. To them, crowds feel overwhelming and socializing feels exhausting. But for those who hate being home, noise is not chaos. It's music. It's the sound of finally feeling present. There's a beautiful truth hidden inside people who hate staying at home. They're often labeled as superficial or afraid of depth. But the truth is they feel life through connection. Every conversation, every shared moment, every glance, it all confirms they exist. And when the world gets too quiet, their instinct isn't to retreat inward, but to reach outward. It's not fear of themselves. It's honoring how they're wired. You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat their time. Some people fill their calendars with plans, their phones with contacts, their lives with stories worth telling. They prefer bright energy, constant movement, the warm buzz of being around life. Each outing becomes a mirror of the person inside them, a physical manifestation of their need to participate. The energetic ones build momentum. The dreamers build experiences. The connectors build community. And through those interactions, they create lives everyone sees. When psychologists study the link between social engagement and well-being, they find something profound. People who spend more time in social environments often report higher levels of happiness, purpose, and life satisfaction because interaction gives them the validation that they matter, that they're seen, that they're real. When you're alone all the time, your thoughts can spiral. You start thinking in isolation language, trapped by how you perceive yourself. But when you're with others, your thoughts expand into their natural form. And that's where real meaning begins. Think of all the great leaders, performers, activists, and entrepreneurs. Many of them thrived on connection, not because they feared solitude, but because they needed people to test ideas, to inspire them, to remind them they were part of something bigger. Maya Angelou once said, "When people show you who they are, believe them." But that truth requires being around people. We need engagement, metaphorically and literally, to understand who we can become. People who hate staying at home have learned that the inner world doesn't complete them. They don't need silence to feel whole. They don't need isolation to know their worth. Because when you spend enough time with others, you stop questioning whether you matter. You start building a presence that no one can ignore. Still, constant engagement can be exhausting. When the movement never stops, the body grows tired. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. That's why not everyone can stay out for long. The noise starts to drain what they've been overextending. But those who embrace that energy learn something powerful. That fulfillment isn't the absence of fatigue. It's the acceptance that some things are worth getting tired for. They learn to ride their own momentum, to feel the energy come and go without resisting. That's emotional honesty in its purest form. And this is what psychology tells us. Comfort with social engagement is one of the strongest indicators of emotional resilience. People who can enjoy being around others have a more dynamic sense of identity. They're more open to new experiences, more enriched by diverse perspectives, and more guided by shared values. Because when you've spent enough time with people, you can hear the harmony between your voice and everyone else's. That's how connection grows in vibrant places. Of course, it's not that people who hate staying home never need rest. They do. But their rest has energy. It's not the stillness of meditation. It's the recovery that comes from knowing you lived fully today. They'd rather be exhausted from living than preserved from hiding. That's not recklessness. That's choosing life. And when they do find moments of quiet, they use them efficiently, practically, necessarily because they know the value of energy. They rest to recharge, recover to return, pause only to prepare for what's next. And that's why their lives feel so full, because they're built on engagement, not withdrawal. But there's another side to all this, one that's less talked about. Sometimes people fall in love with the outside world not because they're energetic, but because they're afraid. Afraid of what happens when the noise stops. Afraid of the thoughts that surface in silence. For them, staying out is the one way they don't have to face what's inside. It's not always vitality. Sometimes it's survival. Psychologists call this external validation dependency. It's what happens when you've spent too long defining yourself through others. When you come home and feel the sudden dread of emptiness, of having nothing to do, of just existing without purpose, that's your identity finally collapsing. You've been building yourself on feedback, reactions, and visibility. And the moment you're alone, everything you thought you were falls apart. That's not energy, that's fragility. People who hate staying home often live with a heightened fear of invisibility. They need other people's attention like oxygen. They notice who's looking, who's responding, who confirms they matter. It's a burden, but it's also terrifying to lose. So they stay in motion to stay visible. And that motion prevents them from ever asking the hardest question: who am I when no one's watching? The more you study this, the more you realize hating home isn't just about preference. It's a psychological pattern. Some people are wired for internal reflection. They thrive on solitude, contemplation, peace. Others are wired for external engagement. They thrive on interaction, stimulation, and validation. Neither is better. They're simply different ways of being human. But because society has begun to romanticize introversion, the louder types often feel misunderstood. In truth, they're just tuned to a different frequency. There's complexity in that, because the world needs both. The ones who reflect and the ones who act. The observers and the participants. The ones who create meaning and the ones who live it out loud. And often it's the participants who make the world feel alive. They're the ones who translate ideas into action, stillness into momentum, silence into celebration. And maybe that's why so many performers, activists, and connectors feel most alive when they're out. It's not that they're running from themselves. It's that they're trying to prove they exist. They turn engagement into identity, movement into meaning, and visibility into validation. Their lives become extensions of their need to be seen. Every interaction carries significance. Every moment confirms they're real. But even for those who aren't performers, the psychology remains the same. The outside world is the space where we prove we matter. It's where we show up for the life we couldn't create alone. It's where we become more than just one version for too long. And that transformation, that constant becoming, is one of the most important psychological needs we have. Because no matter how much we want to believe we're enough on our own, the truth is everyone needs witnesses. A place where they're not just existing, but being seen. For some, that place exists in silence. For others, it exists in noise, crowded rooms, and bright lights. There's something human about those who choose spectacle over stillness. It takes courage to say yes to life, to step into the endless need to be visible and to find value in participation, because in that participation, something extraordinary happens. Connection becomes identity. You start to live not to impress, but to exist. You start to see life not as a private meditation, but as a shared performance. And suddenly the world that once felt indifferent begins to feel like home. That's the secret psychology of people who hate staying at home. They're not running from themselves. They're searching for themselves differently. They're proving it, feeling it, demanding it at a faster rhythm. They're not embracing the world. They're needing it to feel real again. A world where the heart gets to beat faster. And when they stay in, when they finally do decide to rest, they bring with them something fragile. Restless energy. They don't create peace. They carry absence like a weight. Because once you've found validation in others, you stop searching for it in yourself. You stop believing that you can feel at home. You need the world to prove you exist. So if you're someone who hates staying at home, ask yourself why. Don't let the noise convince you that constant motion is vitality, or that visibility is identity. You might not be living fully. You might be running. You're not necessarily tuning in. You might be doing the outer work most people use to avoid the inner work. And that work, loud as it seems, might be what's keeping you from everything else. Because when the world feels uncertain, when people are searching for meaning, it's often the quiet ones who've already found it. Not in crowds or noise, but in the gentle rhythm of their own presence. The courage to sit with yourself, the strength to be alone, the wisdom of your own heartbeat, in the stillness of a room that finally feels like enough. And that's the challenge of it all. Home isn't just a building. It's a mirror of peace you've never earned. A confrontation built out of avoidance, absence, and performance. It's where you could meet yourself again and again until one day you realize you were always running. You were just afraid of coming home to yourself. Sometimes people assume that hating home means you're living fully. but often it means you're still running from yourself. There's a strange emptiness that comes when you can no longer tolerate your own company, when every invitation feels necessary. Every weekend plan feels mandatory. Every moment of silence feels like failure. You begin to realize that joy without witnesses starts to feel meaningless. That the best moments only count if someone saw them happen. You start missing details because you never slow down. The way your mind could calm if you let it rest. The small satisfaction of doing nothing and being okay with it. The way your soul could open if it wasn't constantly fighting to stay visible. It's not connection. It's dependency on distraction. And yet, even in that motion, there's an undercurrent of fear because we live in a world that glorifies visibility, where being seen feels synonymous with existing. If you're not posting, if you're not out, if you're not participating in the collective rush, you assume you're disappearing. And maybe that fear of fading is how you stay trapped in motion. Maybe constant living is not about existing fully, but about never stopping long enough to ask if you're empty. Out there, you learn that connection isn't the cure for loneliness. It's the band-aid that makes disconnection from yourself possible. You begin to see that not every moment needs witnesses. Not every feeling needs to be performed. And not every day needs to be full to be meaningful. There's courage in the invisible life, in moments no one sees, in growth that happens in silence. And maybe that's the truth people who hate staying home eventually face. They're not living toward life. They're running from it, loudly, desperately, endlessly. They're trying to prove what they're afraid might not be true. Not to matter, not to achieve, but to exist. Because sometimes the hardest thing you can do is everything at all. Just sit quietly in your own company and realize that maybe, at last, you were always enough. But you were too afraid to find out.